Well, hello everybody and happy Monday. How are you? My name is Scott Pinyard. I am the head coach here at This Naked Mind, and I am live today, like I am most Mondays, to talk to you about things that I'm seeing, things that I'm hearing going on in our groups, things that I'm hearing people working on or struggling with or anything like that. And today I've got a doozy of a topic. I got to cover. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. It's going to be a little bit of like straight talk here. But don't worry, I'll be gentle. But I want to encourage you to send me questions, comments, thoughts while I'm talking. Say hello to me. Tell me how you are doing. Tell me what is going on with you. I love to hear from you guys as I do these things. That's why I do these things. It's for you. So the topic of today is this idea of later. I'll do it later. I'll deal with it later. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But before I do, I want to cordially invite you to join me and Annie Grace and thousands of other people on our new platform. We have a platform that is just for us. It's a space where you can come and you can ask questions, you can engage with each other, and we have so much free content over there. What I think really unique about this new platform is that we are on our own, right? We are there together. We've had so many people say things like, oh man, I meant to post something in the group and I posted it on my wall. We've had a lot of people reach out to us and say like Facebook tends to suck them in. And so we heard you, and what we have done is we have launched a brand new platform. This group's going to remain open, so don't worry. This isn't going anywhere for a while, but I wanted to extend the invitation to join us over on the new platform because it is incredible. Like, it is awesome. I was just in there the other day. As an example, right, you can go in and you can type in the search bar. Let's say you were having a particularly bad craving. So you can go into the search bar and you can type cravings, and then like up pops this list of podcasts and blog articles and all types of stuff where Annie or me or any of us really have talked about craving. So it is an incredible resource for you. It also has an incredible community. So head on over to thisnakedmindapp.com. You can get signed up there. It is amazing. You can get the apps in app stores on phones and stuff as well. But we would love to see you over there. It is an incredible resource. All right, let's dig in. Before I dig in, no one said hi. No one said hi to me yet. Why are you guys not talking to me today? Say hi. Tell me where you're at. Tell me what questions you have going on. Tell me what's on your mind. I'm live, so I want to be able to talk through it as I see you. So later. You know, I was having a conversation with someone, not in a professional capacity. This was just in a personal capacity a while ago, and this person was really struggling with struggling with alcohol, you know, and they were clear. Hey, Jean Marie in the Poconos, thank you. I'm not alone. That's good. This person was really struggling with alcohol, and one of the things, first of all, they made me promise. They're like, hey, don't give me any of your coaching BS, okay? Like, can I just talk to you as a friend? And I was like, of course. Hey, Siobhan in Derby, UK. Lynn, I'm glad you're here, Lynn. There's a bunch more comments here. I just wasn't seeing them. Scott, yeah, how's it going? Lynn and Christina in Michigan. Awesome. So anyway, I was talking to my friend, and, he said, I have this problem because, I will go through periods of time drinking, and then something will happen, right? Something will happen and it'll make me feel bad. It'll make me feel like I should change something. And he's like, right now I'm super clear that something needs to change. I'm not always clear, but like, I know I need to do something, but I always just keep saying later. Right? I will do it later. Hey, David. Oh, 2 Michigan people in a row. Glad you're here. D, hello, D. Right, but the thing is, I will do it later. Later. Right? And this is something that I remember this from my own journey. I remember that like there were periods of time where I was drinking and it wasn't so bad, right? Like I had adjusted to living with things. I had kind of accepted hangovers as a way of life. I had kind of accepted the fact that like there were conversations I was going to forget. There was a lot of extra money I was spending. Hey, Jenny, glad you're here. right, I'd kind of accepted that, like, there were going to be nights when, that I wouldn't remember, or via welcome, that there would be, hard for me to connect, right? I would have all of these different thoughts. I kind of accepted it, but, like, it was okay, right? But then something big would happen, right? Something big. Maybe my wife, one of the many times, had enough, and she would say, I need you to do something about this. Or maybe it'd be a particularly bad hangover, or maybe there'd be some other consequence, like I didn't perform at work, or I had whatever, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. We've all been there before, where these times like happen, and we end up in a situation where we're like, oh, I need to change, right? Vio, hello. Kelly, hello. Grace, welcome, Grace. Right, these things happen. We're like, oh, I need to make a change. And here's the most devastating answer that I see to that. And I see this over and over. I see it on calls that I have with people, right? One of the most insidious words that we can have, that we can say in that situation, is later. Later, right? I'm going to make a change later. Now, in the moment, when we say later, it actually doesn't feel so bad. As a matter of fact, it kind of feels good, because interestingly enough, and I want to know if you guys reflect this too, if you've seen this happen to you in your journey. Very often when we say later, we actually feel better, because we're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. We're just, kicking the can down the road, so to speak. We're moving that date out a little bit. So it like feels good, because it's like, yes, I am going to do something, but not right now. I will do it later. And so there's an element of feeling good there, but here's what actually happens, right? Here's what actually happens when we say later. What actually happens is we don't get to it, right? So we say like, oh, I'm going to do this later. And then we go down the road another few months, and maybe later comes. And then it's like, you know what? No. I will do it later. I'll do it later, right? And this happens, and this can go on for years, right? Ask me how I know. This is exactly what happened to me. It was always, constantly. Oh, good, Kelly. I'm glad that you're excited. And transforming. That's awesome. But it always happens that we get stuck in this later thing. And, I was thinking about this a lot, because back to my friend, this is what he was telling me. He's like, look, I don't understand why I say like, oh, I'll do it, but I'm going to do it later. Right now isn't the time, blah, 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 blah. Summer's coming up, winter's coming up, Tuesday's coming up, right? Whatever. It always feels good to me when I say later, but then later comes and I don't actually do it. And then I just say later again. And it's like this self-feeding cycle. Tell me in the chat if this sounds familiar to any of you, if any of you have done this saying later thing, right? Yes, always have an excuse for doing it later. Exactly. And so, I sat down and after I had this conversation with him, and I helped him kind of see that, it's not really helping him to be saying later, because he's just having the same conversation with himself every however often, right? 3 months, 4 months. I know for me, like every time I said later, sometimes it was a couple of months, sometimes it was like a week, sometimes it was a day, to be honest with you, right? But we say this over and over and over. And then what happens when later comes up? And this is where I said there's a little direct talk here, right? When you say, if you were struggling today and you're like, okay, today, I'm recording this video on June 6th. I need to do something about my drinking, but here are the things that I have coming up. So after that, I will do it later. I will do it on August 31st, right? And then you go through the entire summer drinking, whatever. And then you get to August 31st and you're like, man, I want to do it later again. But then, and this is the hard part, friends, right, is that we then look back over those last 3 months and we have regret that we didn't change, right? Because we get to later, we think it's going to be easier later, we think it's going to be better later, but then we get to later and we realize, no, it's not any easier, it's not any better. And as a matter of fact, I really regret that I drank all summer, right? I really regret that I've been saying later for a decade. And that's what so many of us do. And again, I'm not saying this to blame anyone, but this is a thing, right? This is a thing that happens in this process. And I want to suggest something to you. And it's something that I know was very true for me. And I really want to hear if this is true for you guys. I think saying I'll do it later is a different way of saying I'm scared. I'm scared. In my journey, the reason I kept kicking the can down the road is that I had no idea how the hell I was going to live my life without alcohol. I literally didn't know, right? I literally didn't know how I was going to deal with stress, how I was going to deal with family, how I was going to deal with work, how I was going to deal with financial problems. I mean, everything in my life, right? That was the question. Everything in my life. I had no idea how I was going to deal with it. And instead of me saying, I'm scared, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, I would just say later, right? Because, I mean, what do humans do when we approach something that we don't want to do, right? When we approach something we don't necessarily have the best feelings about, right? We want to push it away, right? And so for a lot of us, this whole idea of saying later, this whole idea of quitting drinking is so rooted in fear that we just say later. And what I want to suggest to you is that by saying later, by moving that, that timeline down, by saying I'll do it after the summer, and then I'll do it after the holidays, and then I'll do it after the spring, and then I'll do it after the summer, this cycle that we all get stuck in, right? Instead of doing that, or actually I want to maybe make the connection for you that the price of saying later is regret. The price of saying later is regret. And that's because we say later, and then we go those 3 months, and then we want to say later again. And meanwhile, our lives are happening, right? Our lives are happening. And so we keep saying later and later and later, and we never do it. And then we suddenly look back and we're like, oh my God, I have years of laters. I have months of laters. And so I'm bringing this up not to bum you out, but it was a connection that I made when I was talking to my friend that like, oh my God, saying later really is just fear. And the price of that fear is regret. And I don't know about you, but regret is very difficult for me to handle. It's very hard for me to accept. So what I said earlier about this idea of fear being the reason that we say later, but the reason that we saying later is because we're scared, I think that's true. I think it's true because I hear it all the time from people in our programs. I hear, when people are coming through the path or anything else, I'll hear them talk about things like, I really thought that, like Annie says, right? Like that alcohol was a duct tape that was holding my life together. And for so many of us, we're like seeing our life and we're pulling that duct tape off. That's scary. That's totally scary. But what I want to say is that being scared is okay. There is not a single person who has gone through this process without being scared. Not a single one. I promise you. I mean, I can tell you for sure in our programs, fear is something that is so heightened during that first time period because like, what am I going to do? How is life going to work? How am I going to deal with stress, right? All of those questions that we have. Fear is part of the process and it's okay to be scared. We're all scared when we start this journey. We're all scared when we start to really come to terms with like, what is this thing going to mean? And what I'd like to give you today is that I would suggest it's actually better to be scared and not know what to do than to say later. Here's why, right? When you say later, nothing happens. In our minds, we might feel, like I said, a little bit of relief that like, oh, I will do this later. I will make this change later. I will shift things later. But when we say I'm scared, man, something's got to change. Something's got to shift, right? Something happens. That emotion is actually something that is going to push you to change, right? It's going to push you to do the work. And the cost of that fear, the cost of saying I'm scared and sitting in it, the cost of that, there's no cost because that's going to push you. That's going to motivate you. Saying later, the cost of later is regret, right? Looking back over and over and over saying, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? Oh, there's another school year that happened. Oh, there's another birthday party. Oh, there's another work anniversary or marriage anniversary or whatever it was. That's costly. That's very, very expensive. But fear, well, it doesn't feel good in the moment. However, that fear is going to push us forward. And yeah, Siobhan, exactly. Fear of failure, right? There's fear of failure. There's fear of success, right? What happens if I actually do this? Like, what is going to happen in my life if I actually do this thing that I'm trying to do? So what I want to say to you is this idea of later, which I am going to guess that many of you have experienced in the same way that I have. It's very normal. It's very normal to say, I'll do it later. But what I want to invite you to do is I want to invite you, when that thought of later comes up, try to ask yourself the question, am I scared? The answer is going to be yes. And you might be scared of what the summer is going to be like without alcohol, or what the what the fall or the holiday season, or work parties or vacations, right? All of that stuff, right? Or maybe you're afraid, like Siobhan mentioned, that you're not going to be able to do it. Now, here's the kicker, and here's the thing that I'll leave you with, and I really want to kind of just highlight here. When we allow ourselves to feel that fear, we're pushed to action, right? We're pushed to resolve that fear. And the good news is that with this naked mind, pushing to resolve that doesn't mean that you quit drinking right away. And I think this is where so much of the fear comes from, is that we associate this idea like, oh, well, if I say I'm going to do something, if I say I'm afraid of it, if I say I'm going to do it, that means I actually have to put down the bottle. But the answer is actually, no, you don't. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of people, this is how I got engaged with this naked mind. They started doing the work before they quit drinking. And when you look at it that way and you say, wait a minute, doing the work for me? I mean, watching this video is doing that work, right? Purchasing the book, joining us in the path. If you join us in the path, by the way, we will tell you on day one, don't quit drinking right now. So what I really want you to know, oh, David said, my life revolved around alcohol. Living within it seemed impossible. Facing this world sober sounded insane to me. Yes, it's okay. It's absolutely okay to be scared. But let that fear push you towards something productive. Let that fear push you toward taking one little step today. Like I said, watching this video is absolutely one of those steps, right? Engaging with, joining us in the path, doing an alcohol experiment. None of this stuff needs to be something that holds you back. Fear doesn't need to be something that holds you back. Fear can be something that you can say, wait a minute, yeah, I'm going to take a step and change this, right? So just to recap, right? A lot of people say later. I'm proposing that later is just a form of fear. And that fear is something that can actually drive you if you let it. And by the way, starting this process does not mean you need to quit drinking right away. That's something I want to get out of people's heads, because the reality is so many people start this and they get so worried. And yes, most other places that's the case, but that is not the case here. So all of those thoughts that you have about how am I going to deal with work? How am I going to deal with stress? How am I going to deal with my mother-in-law? How am I going to deal with what's happening, right? Grace, perfect. I was scared people would judge me for not drinking, right? How am I going to deal with this? All those thoughts are going to be floating around in your head. And goddamn, yes, it's totally right to say, you know what, I'll deal with that later. That does feel good. But every single one of those fears, every single one of those worries are going to be there when you get to later. And the cost of later is regret. So what do we do? What do we do? I mean, I hope I sort of painted the picture here, right? That later isn't really an option, and right now kind of doesn't feel good, kind of sucks. So what happens now? Well, what happens now is, in this moment of fear, connect with us over on the app. right? Connect with us here in Facebook. Connect with others who have gone through the process. Say, I'm working on this. And by the way, you don't have to say you're an alcoholic. You don't have to say anything like that. But just say, you know what? I want to shift my relationship with alcohol. And take small steps. Watching these videos makes a huge difference. Reading the book. Because when you allow the fear to push you in the direction that's going to serve you versus allowing the fear to just put it out into the future, you're actually going to make progress. And the kicker of this whole thing is that when you let that fear drive you in the direction that you want to go, when you let that fear be a signal like, hey, something has to change, and you use that energy to shift how you connect with and how you talk to others and shift what you're doing about it, the kicker is this: there is no regret. There's no regret. Because, I mean, look at it this way, right? Like if you were to say today, oh, well, I'm saying later, and you go, wait, nope, I'm not saying later. I'm actually just scared. Being scared's okay. Well, I'm going to post in this group, or I'm going to read the book, or I'm going to join the path. That starts a process, right? And even if you get to your later time and you're not fully alcohol free yet, guess what? You're so much farther ahead. There's no regret because you're actually making progress. And even more than that, if you're successful, right? If you get to a place, which by the way, you will be if you keep trying, but if you get to a place where alcohol is small and irrelevant in your life, when you actually get there, I have never, ever, with the hundreds of thousands of people who've gone through our programs, I have not heard one of them say, I regret quitting drinking. Never. Never, ever. Right? So, allowing yourself to be scared, coming here and talking about it, allowing that fear to just push you a little bit, right? Just a little tiny step, not to fully quit drinking, but allow you that opportunity to just go a little bit farther, to do that next thing. That, friends, is how you don't have regret. Because, you know, that example that I started off with here, if you say, all right, today I'm going to say later and I'll drink at the end of the summer, and then you get to the end of the summer and you're like, no, I'm going to do that later, right? You kick the can down the road. You look back over the summer and you're like, wow, I drank all summer. That's regret. The cost of later is regret. But if you allow that fear to inform you, not scare you off, not make it something you want to run away from, but if you allow that fear to say, all right, this is the direction I want to move in, then you will not regret, literally no matter what happens. So I hope all of this makes sense. Tell me in the comments if this was good for you. This is just a thought that's been rolling around in my mind, and this idea of later is so pervasive. And it's something I wish someone had told me while I was on my journey, while I was trying to find my way. And I hope that it resonates for you. Again, let me know in the comments if that's the case. And I'm going to wrap up here by saying, please head on over to thisnakedmindapp.com to join us on our totally free platform. It is incredible. It is amazing. There's so much free content over there. Again, it is totally free. Like, I'm not trying to push you somewhere you got to pay. This is totally free. It is an incredible place to engage with like-minded people, to hear. You have access to all of our blogs and everything all right there. It's really, really amazing. So again, that's thisnakedmindapp.com. Head on over there. I would love to see you there. And again, tell me what you think in the comments. Was this helpful? Was this not helpful? I always love to hear that. I hope you're all having a great Monday, and I will see you very soon. Take care.